Alright guys, we're going to dive right into this one. As you can see, I got the K-frame sitting up underneath the car. I came in under here and I cut the original trailing arm mounts out. So all I did was just took a, let's see, a high-speed reciprocating saw is the only thing I ended up using on both sides, and ended up cutting those out fairly flat. I may ended up welding down the seams on that. I'm not sure yet. But so I'm test fitting this up in here. This is the stud for the VR4. And as you can see, compared to that guy right there, they're definitely a lot bigger and longer to be able to mount the rear part of this K-frame. So in most I don't want to say most, but I've read that some people have taken this and drilled and tapped it and then threaded it onto the end of this, which I thought about doing. The only problem is, as you can see, the threads of the original one actually come down into there, and that gets very thin, so much so that I was worried that it'd probably just break. So what I ended up doing was measured the inside diameter of this hole right here, which was, right at 18 millimeter, just a hair over. And so I bought some 18 millimeter all thread or threaded rod, stainless steel. And then I had it drilled and tapped 12 millimeter 1.25. And then I have it done deep enough that I can just screw it right onto, which I'm not using this stud. This stud will get cut off and I'll probably weld that up. It's really for this one right here. And this thing will thread all the way up onto there. And, and basically, as you can see, it slides up in here. And the reason I wanted this one pretty snug is this is what's going to center the whole K-frame up. And I'll put these on here. I got nuts and washers. It'll keep this K-frame good and centered so that when I get ready to weld the mounts up here, they'll go in the right position. So what I'm looking at doing different on this is, instead of using that factory piece there, which is a whole lot of cutting and welding, let me slide my light over here, is there are the SL actually has the factory holes here. There's a little brace piece that goes from here to here, I guess to give this stability. With this K-frame sitting up in the car, it is almost exactly 1 inch off of elevation of this, so it has to recess up in here 1 inch. And what I'm looking at doing is I'm looking at taking a piece of 4-inch pipe, and I kind of got a rough line around here. Is I'm going to take a 4.5-inch hole saw, because I got scheduled 10 4-inch pipe, and I'm going to run a hole saw and basically hole saw this thing down in just a little over 1 inch, and then I'm going to cut that out and then stick a piece of pipe in there and weld it in, and then that's going to be kind of the basis for my mount, which I know right now you're probably like, I don't really see the vision of that, but I'll show you as I go through this. So the this top mounting pin that goes in this one, or stud, really almost splits right down the middle of this frame rail right here. So we're going to make us a little step out of some heavy duty metal and then be able to just weld that in. The nice thing about doing it this way is I don't have to use that piece and do all the cutting and welding, but also for anybody that wants to attempt to do this on their own, you don't need a donor car to get those off of. So as you see me start doing this, you're going to say, yeah, that probably is actually a lot easier. It just has to, you have to take a lot more measurements. But so I won't be using that, and then I won't be using, these rear studs right here. So I'll probably just put these in my box of parts that I may never use. And then, like I said, you guys can work on your project without needing an actual donor car. So let me get this K-frame out of here and start the work, and then I'll show you guys what I'm doing. All right, so I didn't do a good job filming this part of this, but that's basically what the notch is going to look like. And I know this is a unibody. I call it, I've been calling it a frame just because it kind of looks like a frame. But yeah, so the weight where the stud there actually sits right on this, and this was that was kind of a pain to cut out. As you can see, it's triple layered on the inside, and then it's basically double layered all the way around. And then I got that guy cut on that side as well. I think this one I actually got it cut a little bit bigger than it should be. Here's all the pieces laying here that I had cut out. Probably sound funny because I'm rolling around underneath the car. Like, here's the first one second one maybe that I cut out, so it's pretty thick. I ended up using a cutting wheel, 4.5 inch cutting wheel on an angle grinder. Actually, no, here was the first one I cut out. So it was actually triple layered. On the inside, there's a spot weld right there. So on the other one, it actually, the little piece fell off. But yeah, these are pretty stout, it makes me excited because it gives me a lot of thick material to weld to. As for the rest of the stuff, this is all the just the stuff that held the trailing arms on. You can see I cut that off right here and right there on both sides. So let me show you what's going to go in here and what we're going to weld in place. Alright, so this is basically what I have made that's going to get welded into that spot inside the car. So I'm using 5/8 stainless steel bolts. Let me pull this guy out. So I took a piece of a 4-inch Schedule 10 pipe, which is actually 4.5 inch OD. And then I took some 1/4 inch plate. I cut this at the angle to basically fill in the void underneath the car. And then, you know, as I mentioned, this bolt hole will actually sit right on the inside of that frame rail, so it'll get all kinds of support. Then I welded that in there. I drilled and tapped a hole for a 5/8 by -11. I ended up going with a 5/8 just because it gives me some play in there. It's plenty strong enough, but I got some play in here because when I put the 18 millimeters on the back, I mean, there is no room for movement at all. And of course, I'm not a master fabricator, so my concern was if I used a 19 millimeter, which is what would fit in here, 19 millimeter or a 3/4, there's no wiggle room. And if I drilled and tapped that hole even the slightest of crookedness, or drilled it crooked, then I would have a very hard time trying to get it in there. So 5/8 gives me some play. Now what I'm going to do, you know, as you see me just taking that bolt out, is I already got this one bolted on there. I'm going to bolt them down where they're snug. I still have to cut the notch out. I got to cut a notch out to get this fit up in there. And then I'm going to put the K-frame back in the car, jack it up into place, get these into position, and then tack weld them where they need to go, drop the bolts out, pull the K-frame out, and then go into town welding these guys solid. I'll show you how they fit inside the car before I get before I get to that point, let me drag my light back over here. So again, this is the one I said that I had ended up making it a little bit bigger than it needs to be, but I'll cut that notch out so that nut will get up in there, and then that dude will sit right in that spot, get welded into place. And as you can see, that nut where that 5/8 goes is going to be right along this edge right here, so that is where all the weight's going to be sitting. So it should be nice and solid. And this took me, I don't know, it took me longer to cut it than it did to weld it. But yeah, so let's get this up in here and get it tacked, and then I'll bring you back. Alright, well there's the mounts welded in place. I've just painted everything, or primed everything with some self-etching primer. Welds look a little rough around the edges, but I had some pretty big gaps to fill in, and then there's some gaps up at the tops as well that were I can't get my welder up to. So what I'm going to do is take, since I got a whole tube of that window urethane left, is I'm going to go around the edges of these with the window urethane, and then once it dries, then I'm going to undercoat this all underneath this car here. Cleaned all of the old road grime and debris off, so I'm just going to get a fresh layer of undercoat under here. Then, oh, one other thing I did too. So right there is the middle seat bolt for the back bolt. I don't know if any of you guys had a problem with yours stripping out, but mine stripped. So I stuck a longer bolt in there and then welded a nut on there to fix that, because once the K-frame's in here, you'll never get to that again. So yeah, so let me undercoat this, and then I'm going to slap the K-frame in here, and then probably call it for this video, and then move on to the next step. Just wanted to give you guys one last look at how these mounts are put in here. Everything has been undercoated. A little bit harder to see them since everything's black. But I've done the whole underneath, even back here on the front guard of the gas tank. So let me show you this K-frame before it goes in here and never comes back out. So I got the stabilizer bar mounted on there with some new bushings on both sides, so she's ready to slide in. I just put that rope on there so the thing wouldn't drag the ground, but once I get it in there and get the control arms on there, it'll be up and out of the way. So let me slide it in here, get it bolted in place, and then we'll see what it looks like. And there you have it, guys. A fully supported VR4 subframe, K-frame, whatever you want to call it. I still got to put those braces in there. I'll do that later, but she is in there, bolted up nice and tight. 18 millimeters in the back, 5/8 in the front. And then I put the trailing arm on this side. I still have the rope on the sway bar until I get it on the other side, but she's all in there and she moves. So that's going to conclude this video. Next step is I'm going to do a whole part on what I'm going to do with the rear coilovers. So hope you guys enjoyed this video so far. Like, comment, subscribe. Get ready for part 5. See you on the next one.